Logging is something you need to do explicitly in your API. Platforms and engineers have their own preferred logging frameworks, but they typically have a similar approach to the Log4 family, which includes Log4j, Log4net, and Log4j. In your code, you explicitly write log statements to say what your code is doing at different points, and the logging framework writes those logs to different outputs, which could be a text file, or a database, or a remote service. Log statements are classified by how detailed they are, and frameworks let you specify the logging level at runtime. Logging isn't cheap, especially if your logs are sending off to a remote server, so you need to get the logging level right. In production, you should be configured to run at the minimum possible logging level to give you the assurance that your API is running smoothly. We'll look at some great tools for capturing and analyzing logs shortly, but because remote logging is so much more expensive than local logging, we should look at the type of information that we want to log and how we can classify different levels of log entry. Getting the logging level right isn't easy, and you may need a few iterations to make sure you're logging useful information without a flood of logs that you can't make sense of, and you're also not slowing down your API with excessive logging. Your logging framework should let you turn the logging level up at runtime so you get more detailed information to help you diagnose when things go wrong. Here's some pseudocode for my Spider of the Day API call. I start by building a cache key to identify today's spider, and then check my level 1 cache to see if the response is already there. If not, I check the level 2 cache. If it's not there, I go to the repository to find the highest ranked spider which hasn't previously been Spider of the Day. Then I build the response from the repository output, asynchronously add it to level 2 and level 1 caches, and then return. What sort of logs do I want to see for this? I may want entry and exit points recorded, but that's going to be very verbose when I'm running at load, so chances are I won't want to see that in production. They can be debug level logs, which I'll probably only use in dev and test environments. At the same level, I may want to see the cache key I'm using to make sure it's generated correctly. I may want to log whether I got a level 1 cache hit, so I can see how well my cache is working. That's still a detailed log level, but potentially I would want to see that without all the other logs, so I could make that at info level. My level 2 cache could be disk or a remote store, and there could be problems accessing it, but the API call should still work, it will just be slower. So I can put a try catch around the level 2 fetch, write an info log if there was a cache hit, and in the catch write a warning level log to say there's something wrong with the cache. Warn is probably the level I'll be running in production, and this is something that I want to see. If the caches are empty, I'll go down to the repository, and that could fail if I can't connect to the data store. That means the API call will fail, so the client will get a 500 response, and I definitely want to see that. So again, I'll add a try catch, but now write an error log if the call fails. At a higher runtime log level, I may want to see that the repository was called, so I'll write an info log there. When I have the response ready, I'll add it to level 2 cache with a try catch and another warn statement if it fails, and debug logs to say it's been added to L1 and L2 caches. That may look like a lot of logging. If I run at debug level, I'll get 8 or 9 log entries for every call, depending on the path through the code. But when you have a dozen remote servers running this code and you get intermittent errors, you need this level of instrumentation to diagnose the problems. As a very rough rule of thumb, I found these proportions are about right for the sort of solutions I build. Something like 1 log entry for every dozen or so lines of code, more if it's complex, and the log level will be split to about 60% debug, 25% info, 10% warn, and 5% error.